Hi, I'm Yanni, and this is the Atlantic Forest, a region of tropical and subtropical forest that extends along the Atlantic coast of Brazil from the very north to the very south of the country and inland as far as Paraguay and Argentina. This area has historically been known for its high biodiversity and is home to many iconic animal species such as the jaguar, short-tailed opossum, spider monkey, and white-lipped peccary. But these beautiful creatures are under threat. Their forest home is slowly being fragmented into small patches of forest disconnected from one another, as the forest is split up by roads, housing developments, farms, and mining excavations. When this happens, there are more edges to the forest, which is bad news for many of the animals living there. Forest edges tend to have harsher microclimates due to aspects such as higher temperatures resulting from increased sun penetration, higher winds, and lower humidity, and are thus usually less suitable habitats for the original occupants of the area. As a result, there are a large number of species in the Atlantic forest that are now considered to be critically endangered or threatened. This is Chloe. She is an ecologist and has spent time in the Atlantic forest and other parts of South America working with these vulnerable species. So Chloe, what effect do you think the fragmentation of the Atlantic forest is having on the native wildlife?
Well, the effects of fragmentation in the Atlantic rainforest of Brazil have been quite severe. It was once an unbroken belt of rainforest stretching from the south in Florianopolis to Recife in the north, but is now only about 6% of its former extent. With the Atlantic rainforest to the east and the Sectão, which is a huge expanse of savanna and dry forest, to the west, which separates it from the Amazon, these Atlantic rainforests are biodiversity hotspots, and fragmentation is seriously restricting the habitat of the native wildlife. About 70 out of the 260 mammals that are found here are endemic, especially critically endangered primates such as the golden lion tamarin, and other animals which have large home ranges such as the jaguar are also seriously restricted.
And do you think that there are other reasons for the dramatic decline in the numbers of some of these species?
Of course, habitat fragmentation is, in my opinion, the most serious threat to the native wildlife in this area, especially as Brazil is a country of 200 million people, and a great proportion of those live on the east coast in large cities such as Sao Paulo and Rio de Janeiro. However, there are other factors to consider. Hunting of animals such as the golden lion tamarin and the jaguar have seriously reduced the population, and even though it's now illegal, it is not necessarily well policed, and it's still happening, be it for the pet trade or for the prize skin of something like the jaguar. However, I do believe that logging and clearing is still the main concern. It can be done for a range of reasons, such as firewood, agricultural land, cattle use. They also clear it for sugarcane plantations and coffee plantations, which of course causes fragmentation of the Atlantic rainforests and can also cause the edge effect, which has a serious impact on the quality of the forest itself.
So what can be done to help preserve the endangered species in this area?
Well, that's a tough question, and there are certainly no easy solutions. To stop any logging of Atlantic rainforest would be ideal, though perhaps not necessarily a realistic aim. The ultimate aim, I suppose, in these type of projects would be to create habitat corridors to connect fragments and thus populations of endemic species so that the genes can flow through the populations. However, this may be quite difficult in this part of Brazil due to the large expansion of urbanized areas. At present in Brazil, the focus has been more on captive breeding programs and reintroducing zoo-bred animals of various species into protected areas such as Poços dos Antas in the Rio de Janeiro state. Some habitat corridor programs have been attempted, with farmers planting seedlings for reforestation schemes. However, only 1/3 of the Atlantic rainforest is protected, with little enforcement, which makes this quite difficult. I myself worked at an organisation in the Amazon rainforest in Bolivia with jaguars and pumas, and these animals were mostly rescued from the pet trade, and the ultimate goal was to re-release them into the wild. However, in places like Bolivia and indeed the Atlantic rainforest in Brazil, there are limited places where one is able to ensure that the jaguars will have adequate home territory and where they're not going to come into contact with the human population. So it's a very difficult question, that one.
Thanks, Chloe. So hunting is a problem for some of these animals too. Farmers trying to protect their crops or livestock, and people trying to protect their children and communities, sometimes shoot animals they see as a threat. But it still isn't impacting on their numbers as much as fragmentation and deforestation. One way that farmers can help the situation is by planting their crops in rows that connect the remaining forest fragments, or as Chloe suggested, plant native trees across their property for the same effect. That way, arboreal animals such as possums, primates and reptiles are able to move between the fragments and maintain their genetic diversity. Unfortunately, solutions like this will not help animals such as the jaguar or peccary. The larger forest fragments need to be maintained to ensure that these animals have enough food and territory to go around, and we may even need to intervene by physically moving individuals to new locations to minimise inbreeding. But there can be circumstances where fragmentation isn't such a bad thing. For example, a study of the starred robin in Kenya showed that the species was able to thrive at the forest edges. This is because most of the large mammals in the area live within the interior of the fragments, thus reducing predation on eggs and birds living towards the edge. Sadly, this particular bird is able to thrive because of the dwindling numbers of its predators. While one species lives on, many more are dying out, and the jaguar and the golden lion tamarin will be among the first to go. The animal inhabitants of the Atlantic forest in Brazil need to be protected, or they are at real risk of being wiped out. We need to conserve what little fragments of forest are left, promote gene flow, and do everything in our power to help these species maintain their populations. The human presence is what has caused this problem, but there is hope that human compassion and intervention will bring these animals back from the brink.